Every object in your environment carries energy. Some build you up, others break you down. What if the very things sitting silently in your home are silently working against your peace, purpose, and destiny? Today, we're going to uncover 7 everyday objects that have no business sharing space with your future. Have you ever felt unsettled in your own space and couldn't quite explain why? Have you ever walked into your home and felt heaviness, not on your body, but on your spirit? That's no coincidence. There are things in your house that don't belong, not just because they're old or unused, but because they carry an assignment. Silent, subtle, strategic. These are the silent saboteurs, objects that look harmless, maybe even beautiful, but carry with them a purpose, and that purpose is to disarm your clarity, dismantle your peace, and disrupt your progress. They don't make noise, they don't move, but their influence is alive. You'd never invite an enemy to dinner, right? But what if the enemy didn't need an invitation, just a placement? Some of these objects find their way in through gifts that look generous but are spiritually charged with negative intention. Others come through careless purchases, picked up in markets, antique shops, or even online, with unknown history, unknown purpose, unknown attachments. And some are inherited, passed down from generation to generation, carrying not just dust and memories, but chains that don't bind your hands. They bind your mind, your emotions, your relationships, and your future. The enemy doesn't need to knock on your door when you've unknowingly given him the keys. And how do you give him the keys? Through tolerance, through ignorance, through the belief that it's just decoration, it's just tradition, it's just a souvenir. But nothing is ever just anything. Everything has meaning, everything has origin, and everything has influence, either pushing you forward or pulling you down. Your home is supposed to be a sanctuary, not a battlefield. But when the wrong objects enter, the atmosphere shifts. You start feeling tired, but it's not physical. You lose motivation, but nothing's changed. You feel resistance, confusion, delay, but can't find the source. Why? Because the source is not what's around you, it's what's within your wall. And if you've ever wondered why certain cycles keep repeating in your life, chaos, broken relationships, stagnation, sickness, maybe, just maybe, it's not just what you're doing, but what you're housing. These silent saboteurs don't knock, they nest. And if you don't recognize them, you'll entertain them. But the good news is, once you see it, you can stop it. Once you expose it, you can remove it. Once you remove it, you can restore what was stolen: your peace, your clarity, your authority. But how do you identify these objects? What do they look like? Where are they hiding? And what should you do when you find one? Get ready, because the next object isn't sitting in plain sight, it's disguised in beauty. And beauty can be deadly. Have you ever noticed, sometimes the most dangerous thing in your life isn't loud, it's quiet. It doesn't yell, it doesn't threaten, it whispers, it blends in, it looks like it belongs, but its presence shifts everything. These are the objects that speak destruction without ever opening their mouth. Some things in your home are speaking, even when you're not listening. They're shaping your emotions, your sleep, your focus, and you don't even realize it. You can feel it, but you can't trace it. You can sense something is off, but you keep pushing through it. What if I told you the very thing draining your peace is sitting on your shelf or hanging on your wall? There are symbols, masks, statues, paintings, and artifacts that are not just art, they are assignments. Their design is intentional, their shape, their material, their imagery. It carries a frequency, a message, and in some cases, a curse. You thought it was beautiful, exotic, interesting, but what if that beauty was a disguise? What if that item wasn't meant to inspire you, but to infiltrate you? See, the power of an object isn't just in its appearance, it's in its agreement. What are you agreeing with every time you look at it? What energy are you allowing every time you walk past? Some things don't need your permission to speak, they just need your presence. And once they're in, they begin their work. Subtle shifts, delayed opportunities, a heavy mind, anxiety with no cause, doors that used to open, now closed. And the worst part, you think it's just life, but it's not life, it's language. It's the silent language of darkness. And the most dangerous part, you can't fight what you won't confront, and you won't confront what you don't recognize. These objects may have been given to you by someone you trust. They may have come from travels, adventures, or even inherited from generations before. But history does not erase influence. Just because it's old doesn't make it safe. Just because it's cultural doesn't make it clean. You have to become a guardian of your environment, because if you don't guard it, something else will govern it. The question isn't, is this beautiful? The question is, what is this doing to me? What's happening since you brought it in? What has shifted? What has been stolen that you haven't even noticed yet? You have to listen for the things that don't speak in words. You have to look for what's hiding in plain sight, because not all attacks come from outside. Some are planted inside. And the most dangerous traps are the ones that feel familiar. Now let me ask you this. What if the next object isn't hidden in decor, but disguised as a gift? A gift that doesn't bless you, but binds you. The atmosphere you live in doesn't just affect your comfort, it affects your clarity. The colors, the sounds, the placement, the objects, they all speak to your subconscious, and more importantly, they speak to your future. So let me ask you, what have you allowed into your space that's now taking up space in your soul? Some people live in beautifully decorated prisons. Everything looks good, clean, stylish, modern, but inside it's heavy. The room is quiet, but the energy is loud. You try to rest, but you're restless. You try to think, but your mind is clouded. You try to pray, to focus, to plan, but you can't. Why? Because your space has been compromised. Your home was designed to be a place of peace, a place of purpose. But when certain objects enter your home, they don't just fill a corner, they occupy authority. And when something unclean takes authority in your space, it begins to rewrite the rules of your environment. It tells peace to leave. It invites conflict. It tells clarity to step back and confusion to move forward. There are objects that carry a presence, and that presence sets the tone for your entire home. A statue, a charm, a mirror, a dream catcher, a figurine. It might seem harmless. It might even look helpful. But ask yourself, why did your energy shift after it arrived? Why do arguments increase in certain rooms? Why do you feel drained where you should feel restored? It's because these objects carry influence. And influence doesn't need permission. When you've given it a platform, you didn't knowingly agree, but you didn't resist either. And passivity creates permission. When you don't cleanse your space, you confuse your spirit. You lose track of what's yours and what's been planted. Suddenly your thoughts feel foreign. Your emotions feel unstable. Your progress starts stalling, not because you stopped working, but because something else started working against you. You must take inventory of your environment. You have to ask the hard questions. What's this doing here? Where did it come from? Who gave it to me and what came with it? Because your space isn't just where you sleep. It's where you strategize, where you heal, where you grow. And if the atmosphere is contaminated, so is your potential. Your space is sacred, and anything that competes with your peace has to. But what if the thing affecting you isn't sitting on a shelf or hanging on a wall? What if it's something you've inherited, something passed down through generations, carrying more than memories, something working behind the scenes, something that's not obvious, but operative? You don't see it because you've normalized it. You don't question it because it's always been there. But just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's safe. You've heard the phrase, what you don't know can't hurt you. But that's not true. What you don't know can destroy you, especially when it's disguised as culture, as tradition, as inheritance. There are things passed down in families, objects, jewelry, heirlooms, symbols that carry more than sentiment. They carry spirits, attachments, assignments. You didn't buy it, you didn't seek it, but it was given to you, and with it came patterns, cycles, struggles that don't make sense. And you wonder, why does depression run in the bloodline? Why does poverty repeat itself? Why do marriages break the same way, generation after generation? Why are dreams delayed and vision clouded? No matter how hard you work or how good your heart, it's because something was planted and never removed. And now you're not just living your life, you're living with leftovers, spiritual leftovers, unseen agreements, and they've settled into your house like furniture, blended into your routine like background music. But every day they stay, they strengthen their grip. That necklace, that ring, that old book, that framed object on the wall. What was its origin? What did it represent to the one who gave it to you? You might say, it's just a memory. But what if that memory is keeping you bound to something you were meant to be free from? Some things were never supposed to follow you. Some things should have been buried, burned, or broken. But instead, they were boxed up and passed on. And now they sit in your house, watching your growth, blocking your next level, disturbing your peace, and you think it's just stress. But it's not stress, it's a strategy, a long-standing one, rooted in your bloodline, fed by ignorance, and empowered by silence. The enemy doesn't always come knocking with new tricks. Sometimes, he just hides in what's been trusted the longest, and if you never question it, you'll never break it. You need to evaluate what you've inherited, not just in your bank account, but in your closets, your drawers, your shelves, because everything passed down to you isn't for you. Some of it was wrapped in a smile, but fueled by darkness. You need to know the difference, and if you're serious about shifting your atmosphere, healing your bloodline, and breaking what's been holding you back, you can't keep everything that came before you. But what if the next object isn't passed down, but picked up in love, displayed in trust, but beneath its surface, a trap? What if I told you, not everything in your home was invited? Some things didn't come by your choice, they came by your permission. Not because you knew what they were, but because you didn't ask, you didn't question it, you didn't check its weight, you just accepted it, because it looked kind. Some of the most dangerous objects in your life came wrapped in love, a gift, a gesture, a surprise, and you said thank you. You smiled, you placed it on the shelf, hung it on the wall, wore it with pride, but you didn't know what was really behind it. Let me ask you, who gave it to you? What was their intent? What energy were they carrying when they handed it over? Because objects carry more than value, they carry transfer. What's on them moves through them, and just because something was given with a smile, doesn't mean it came with peace. Some people give gifts, not to bless you but to bind you, not to honor you but to access you, to place something in your home that allows a connection, a spiritual connection, to remain open, and as long as that object stays, so does the influence, so does the disturbance, so does the oppression. You start noticing patterns. Since that object entered, things shifted. You can't sleep, you're anxious, dreams are darker, relationships are colder, motivation is lower, and you can't trace it, because it didn't come in looking like a curse, it came in looking like love. You see, the most effective traps never look like traps, they look safe, they feel personal, they seem meaningful, but they carry an unseen weight, a hidden cost, and over time, that cost starts draining your focus, your peace, your growth. You have to ask yourself, why did they give this to me? What was happening in their life when they gave it? What are they connected to? Because connection doesn't break at the door, it enters with the object. If you never evaluate the source, you can never understand the impact. And if you don't understand the impact, you'll keep entertaining what's really been entrapping you. You have to become more than polite. You have to become protective. Protective over your space. Protective over your purpose. Protective over your atmosphere. Because not every gift is a gift. Some gifts are gateway. And once you recognize the pattern, once you see the fruit, you can't ignore the root. But what happens when the object isn't just a gift or a decoration, but something you picked up, something you chose, without knowing the territory it came from? What if what you brought home brought something else with it? There's something powerful about presence. Not just people but objects, environments, atmospheres. Everything that enters your space brings a presence, and that presence either works for you or it works against you. Nothing is neutral. Nothing just sits in your space. Everything either uplifts or it oppresses. Now here's what most people never realize. You might have bought it, but that doesn't mean you understand it. You saw it in a market, maybe while traveling. You thought it looked exotic, mysterious, or unique. Maybe it was a handmade piece from another country, or something that just spoke to you. But you never asked, what language was it speaking? What spirit was attached to its creation? What was its origin, its history, its meaning? There are regions in the world where certain crafts are not just artistic, they're ritualistic. Carvings, masks, statues, totems. They aren't just souvenirs, they're tools, gateways, symbols of acts. And when you pick it up, pay for it, and bring it into your home, you didn't just bring back an object. You brought back agreement, a silent handshake, with something you don't see, but now lives with you, and slowly, the atmosphere starts changing. You don't feel as light, you're more agitated. You wake up tired, you can't focus like before. Things that used to come easy now feel heavy, and you don't connect it to that little item on your shelf. Why would you? It's just decor, right? But what if it's not? What if that object came from a ceremony? What if it was used for invocation? What if its entire design was rooted in bondage, but sold to you as beauty? You must understand, presence is power. And when you give presence to something, you give it permission. You let it in, you let it speak, you let it set. And once it settles, it starts influencing decisions, moods, relationships, even the peace in your own body. Some of the tension in your life isn't coming from within you, it's coming from around you, from what's sharing space with you, from what you've given a platform, a corner, a table, a wall. That's why you must stop asking, does this look good? And start asking, does this belong here? Because everything that looks good isn't good, and everything that feels interesting isn't innocent. The next time you walk through your home, don't just look, discern. Ask what's influencing your atmosphere. What have I allowed that's now affecting me? Because if you don't manage what's present, it will start managing you. But what if the object isn't just influencing your space? What if it's inviting something else in? Something darker, that doesn't just visit, it stays. Sometimes, it's not what you see in your home, it's what's visiting because of what's already there. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like something entered your house, but you never saw anyone come in? You locked the doors, you closed the windows, but the atmosphere still changed. You can feel it. The room gets heavy, the temperature shifts, the peace you used to feel gone, and you don't know why. The truth is, some objects don't just sit there. They summon, they attract, they invite. And what they invite isn't always seen with the eye. You brought in a statue, a charm, a mask, maybe even something that felt spiritual, something recommended by a friend or a store clerk who sensed your energy. But what they didn't tell you is that objects can be portals. Yes, a portal, a doorway. Not a physical one, but a spiritual one. A channel, a signal, a beacon for things that don't need keys. Because they were called, you didn't mean to. But the object in your house became an invitation, not just to energy, but to entities, spirits. And they're not here to help you. They're here to hinder you. This is why you can clean your house, light candles, rearrange furniture, play calming music, and still feel the chaos. Because what's disturbing your peace isn't outside you. It's something you've welcomed, not with your words, but with your acceptance. These objects open the door for what you can't control. Unseen forces that begin to influence your dreams, your thoughts, your behavior. Night terrors, sleep paralysis, constant fear, cold spots, the feeling that someone's watching you, and yet there's no one there. Or is there? Some spirits don't need to make a sound. Their presence speaks louder than words. They just need access. And the object becomes the access point, the legal right, the anchor. And now you wonder, why can't I pray clearly? Why is there so much tension in my home? Why do I feel watched, anxious, angry, overwhelmed? Why is it worse at night? Because something isn't just in your house, it's been invited. You might be living with a guest that doesn't plan to leave, one that feeds on fear, one that thrives in silence, one that hides in plain sight, waiting, watching, influencing. This is why you must walk through your home with eyes open, not just physical eyes, but spiritual awareness. Ask yourself, what did I bring in that gave something else permission to enter too? Because until you remove the invitation, the intruder will remain. But what if the next object isn't just affecting you? What if it's targeting your children, their sleep, their behavior, their future? What if they're under attack and the door is still wide open? There's a weight in your house that doesn't belong to you, a heaviness, a silence, a strange atmosphere that creeps in, especially at night. But it's not always after you. Sometimes it goes after the most vulnerable, your children. Your peace might be shaken, yes, but their innocence is being targeted. You thought it was just a phase. Nightmares, restlessness, crying in the middle of the night, sudden fear of being alone, sudden shifts in mood, disobedience that doesn't make sense. One minute they're laughing, the next they're screaming, withdrawn or angry. You chalk it up to growing pains. But what if it's not growth? What if it's spiritual interference? Children are highly sensitive to energy, more sensitive than most adults. Their minds are open, their spirits unguarded. And when there's an object in your house, even one that looks harmless, that carries darkness, they feel it before you do. It may be a doll, a toy, a mask, a figurine, even a book or a game, something gifted to them, something you allowed in without question. But listen carefully, just because it's made for kids doesn't mean it's safe. In fact, many of these items are designed to be gateways, objects that open the soul, shape the imagination, and attract spirits, spirits that want influence, spirits that crave early access. Why? Because if the enemy can reach them young, he won't have to fight them later. You've seen the signs, but you didn't connect them. Your child says they see a shadow, or they're scared of a voice. They talk about an imaginary friend that feels too real. They avoid a certain room. They stare at one corner. They draw strange things. Their joy is dimmer, their eyes a little duller, and something in your spirit whispers, something's off. But instead of investigating, you ignore it. You say they're just playing. They'll grow out of it. But what if they're not playing? They're warning you. What if their struggle is rooted in something you've allowed in your home? Walk through their room. Look at every toy, every book, every decoration. Ask, where did this come from? Who gave it to them? What is the origin of this character, this symbol, this image? Because the influence may not be in their heart. It might be sitting right there on their shelf. You protect your home with locks, alarms, cameras, but are you protecting their spirits? You wouldn't let a stranger walk in the front door, sit on their bed, whisper in their ear. But that's exactly what's happening when a cursed or charged object remains undetected. It's not just your child's sleep that's at stake. It's their destiny, their clarity, their spiritual immunity. And if you don't deal with it early, it will grow with them. But what if the real battle in your home isn't about a child or an object, but your very mind? What if there's something you brought in that's been slowly shifting how you think, how you feel, how you believe? Your mind is a battlefield, but most people don't even know when the war started. You just woke up one day and you weren't yourself anymore. Thoughts became louder, doubts became stronger, your confidence gone, your clarity clouded, and you can't trace where the shift began, because the weapon didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a book, a journal, a quote on the wall, or a piece of art that just resonated with you. But it didn't resonate. It rewired. You have to be careful what you let speak into your life, especially when it comes in the form of wisdom. Not all wisdom is clean. Not all guidance is pure. Some of it was written, drawn, or spoken under the influence of manipulation, control, seduction, or spiritual distortion. And when you brought that book into your home, or hung that art piece on your wall, or opened that journal every night before bed, you were opening your mind to an unseen source. It's not about fear, it's about discernment. Because the moment you let something influence your thoughts, you've given it power over your decisions. And once it has your decisions, it shapes your destiny. Have you noticed how much darker your thoughts have become since that object arrived? Have you paid attention to the increase in confusion, indecision, mood swings? You're restless, easily irritated, easily distracted. You feel like you're carrying thoughts that aren't even yours. Where did they come from? They came from an open door. Ideas are powerful, and the mind is a gateway. What you read, what you watch, what you display, it shapes your internal world. And once something has access to your thoughts, it begins to program your belief, and that belief becomes your reality. What you believe is what you will begin to manifest, not because it's true, but because it's been planted. That inspirational quote on your wall might be sowing seeds of rebellion. That journal prompt you found online might be leading you into deeper confusion. That statue or image you bought for aesthetic might carry frequencies that open your mind to manipulation. And here's the key: it doesn't have to happen all at once. No, the enemy is patient. It happens slowly, one idea at a time, one emotion at a time, until you're not sure who you are anymore. You're disconnected, unstable, you've stopped dreaming, you've stopped believing, you've stopped moving forward, and you never realized the object didn't just sit in your house, it sat in your mind. But what if the final object isn't one that was hidden, disguised, or even bought? What if the most dangerous one is something you created yourself, something personal, something powerful, something you didn't realize could bind your entire destiny in silence? Sometimes the most dangerous object in your home isn't the one you bought. It's not the charm from a distant country. It's not the doll. It's not the mask. It's not the artwork, or the crystal, or the book. No, sometimes the most destructive object is the one you made. Yes, created with your own hands. A vision board, a diary, a scrapbook, a memory box, an altar of memories, something personal, something sacred to you. But here's the truth: you can't call it just creative if what you've created carries a spiritual weight that keeps you bound. You think it's just a collage, but it's a covenant. You think it's just a journal, but it's a doorway. You think it's just memories, but it's a monument of pain, of brokenness, of bitterness. Some of you are holding on to objects that anchor your trauma, objects that keep replaying your past so loudly that you can't even step into your future. That vision board you created during a season of desperation, did you ever stop to ask who you were when you made it? What spirit were you under? What mindset? What pain? What desperation? Because whatever you birthed in that moment is now speaking in your atmosphere every single day. That diary filled with declarations, you poured your heart into it, yes, but did you also pour in fear? Did you write curses over yourself without even knowing it? I'll never be enough. No one understands me. Everyone always leaves. Those words didn't disappear. They stayed. They planted. They built. You thought you were venting, but you were building strongholds with your own hand. You must understand, you are a creator, but not every creation should be kept. Some of it needs to be burned. Some of it needs to be torn up, because what you made in darkness can't go with you into the light. And if you've created something from a place of pain, of revenge, of fear, of control, you didn't just express it, you invited it, you gave it form, you gave it voice, you gave it access, and now years later, you wonder why you keep cycling back to the same emotions, the same thoughts, the same limitations. It's because the object is still there, still present, still alive with the energy that birthed it. So you must ask yourself, what have I created that is now controlling me? What have I built, framed, or recorded that now owns space in my home and in my mind? Because if you don't silence what you made, it will keep speaking for you. And if you don't destroy it, it will slowly destroy you. Now is the time to take back your home, take back your atmosphere, take back your authority, because you are the gatekeeper. And whatever stays in your space only stays because you allow it. Remove it, release it, and reclaim your peace.